Okay,
Good.
so let's just get started. Julieanna Hever is also known as the plant-based dietitian. She has authored 7 books, including the brand new Choose You Now Diet, The Health Span Solution, Plant-Based Nutrition, The Idiot's Guide, and The Vegetarian Diet. She is the host of the Choose You Now podcast. Juliana also instructed for the eCornell Plant-Based Nutrition Certification Program, which I highly recommend. Awesome, awesome program. Juliana speaks and consults with clients around the globe. You can find her at plantbaseddietitian.com. Okay, so I have a question from Lulu. She says, I have been on a whole food plant-based way of eating for 2.5 years, oil and sugar free. After decades of yo-yo dieting and binge eating, I am still a volume eater and I'm still working on this, but I've managed to become slim and maintain my slim weight for 2 years. I do this by eating legumes in moderation, definitely not daily. And I haven't eaten any grains or oats or pasta. I eat mainly fruit, veggies, starchy veggies, and winter squashes, chestnuts, some potatoes. Is this okay in the long term?
Well, I still would, I call this fat phobia. And I think it's a concern because people call themselves volume eaters because there's this way of thinking that if you omit fat, you could eat as much as you want. And I call this fat phobia because it's got 2 major problems associated with it. People that are binge eating or eating for volume, that's the issue. You need to kind of I suggest people kind of work on why they're binge eating. And it's most importantly, you're avoiding fat, and fat is important. It's essential in the diet. So I definitely recommend having 1 to 2 ounces of nuts and seeds a day, just to get the essential fatty acids and make sure you're metabolizing fat soluble vitamins and stuff like that. So if she's avoiding that altogether, I would suggest she consider doing that. I think that's a problem with that messaging of you could eat as much as you want if you avoid fat, because we don't need to avoid fat. We just need to be conscientious about what forms of fat and how much of it we consume.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that you speak to that because I talk to a lot of people who identify with volume eaters, and it just seems like we're putting way too much emphasis on food and the way we think about it, and it just doesn't feel like a very healthy relationship.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, so her second question involves she ordered some chocolate pastries for Christmas. She hasn't eaten any in 2.5 years. She's feeling stronger and she decided to go for a mindful indulgence to test herself to see if it leads to a binge. She goes on about the calories. Should I abstain from these trigger foods? I don't have any other rich food in the house that she could end up binging on except for things like peanut butter and mountains of pasta, rice, etc. Your thoughts would be appreciated. Thank you.
So it's a good question. And I think this is where we're dealing with more emotional behavioral stuff. And so I like to think that you could have anything in your diet, like anything could work. You have to make it work so it's sustainable for you. So I call it a day of deliciousness. So everyone, we've got the holidays coming up. I don't know when you're going to be posting this, but like right now it's right before the holiday season. Like literally Christmas is coming up. And I have my clients do, and I did a handling the holidays together support group, because it's hard. But so what we do, instead of like lumping all the holidays together and just doing it whatever you want and then just dealing with it later, it's a strategic approach. It's like, I have a day, Christmas Eve, whatever you're going to do, have a meal that you want. And I want you to enjoy all that matters is what you do next. So the idea of I'm going to let myself binge on this. Well, it's like, why don't you, instead of binging on it, enjoy it and taste it and take your time with it and savor it and then go back to being on plan. So I think this is all behavioral and emotional, and that's what you want to work on. And that's why I said, like, perpetuating eating as much as you want is not a healthy mentality, because you're not dealing with the underlying issues of why you feel like you need to eat so much and why you want to get that feeling being stuffed. What are you trying to satiate? What are you trying to push away? And I think a lot of the stuff that comes up with my clients, we get really, really deep when we talk, because when you're not pushing down those emotions with food, the stuff that percolates, it's an opportunity to heal. And so I would encourage her to, if she wants to have those pastries, to sit down, enjoy every single bite, like literally enjoy and savor and every morsel, guilt and shame free. And then you go back to eating healthy, and there's no harm or foul in doing something like that. That's a real healthy way to approach eating foods that you love and want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds like she just wants to test and figure out if she still needs to refrain from those foods 100%. I know a lot of people will stay away from, these highly palatable foods for a while because they noticed they had a problem with them. They were over consuming them and they were kind of out of control. with their ability to refrain from them. So once in a while, I think it is healthy to kind of test that a little bit if you're in the right headspace and, all the stars are aligned and all that good stuff. I'm totally kidding about the stars.
I really prefer to make it strategic rather than testing yourself. It's more of like, because I think language really, really matters. And I think how you talk to yourself and about yourself, because you absolutely can decide, I'm going to eat this pastry and then I'm going to go back on plan and deal with whatever happens when you're with your brain. Like when it's like, oh, I really want that again, just know, oh, that's because I had it. And the more you have it, the more you want. Even one dose will make you, we're still human. So you're playing with fire because you're like testing yourself, but like you're humanly adapted to want to eat more of it. Of course you're going to want it. So if you could be at peace with wanting to eat that and enjoying it, and then know that, okay, so I'm going to crave it for a little while after, but it doesn't feel good if I eat that too often, I'll make it a special day of deliciousness or treat. I think that's a very different, more powerful, empowered way to look at it, rather than be a victim of whatever may happen. Because you're not a victim. No one's going to make you eat something, and no one's going to, but those foods, they make you want to eat more. So how do you deal in that? And I think that you really can. That's why my last book is called Choose You Now. It's about making these choices very conscientiously and being mindful and present in all of those decisions, rather than letting everything else and all the story sweep you up. So I would encourage her to kind of think about, like, what if I decide to do this, and what if I could enjoy it, and what if I don't feel bad about it, and then I just eat back to my vegetables and whatever she's eating normally that's really healthy for her. And I think that that could change the way she thinks about it if she was interested in trying that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'd be interested to hear about the other areas of her health, like the social connectivity, the sleep, the exercise, like if she has all those components in place, the stress management. Sometimes those can rear their head in strange places if we don't deal with them. Okay, so I have a question from Lucy. Is it possible to eat whole food plant-based and still be iron deficient? My sister was skeptical of the diagnosis and hesitant to take prescription drugs to remedy it.
Oh yeah, iron deficiency is the number one mineral deficiency in the world. It's very common, especially if you're menstruating or pregnant or all of that. So definitely if you're diagnosed with low iron, well, vegans tend to have low ferritin stored iron. That's just something that is just normal because we're not eating heme iron. So, but if you're low in hemoglobin hematocrit, your doctor's concerned about that and should be, then you need to supplement, but temporarily. You don't want to do a long-term iron supplement.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. Okay, Misty is wondering about struggling with cravings while losing weight with PCOS.
Yep. I mean, cravings are real and cravings are tough, and how you manage them is really important. And with or without PCOS, it's the more you eat those foods, the more you want them. So you shift your palate by eating a wholesome as possible diet. You save your treats for a day of deliciousness as infrequently as possible so that you can enjoy them, but not too frequently where you just constantly want them, because it takes a few days to get over one dose of that. But if you could just do that in a strategic way and not have those foods around, that helps. Like, just not have them in your presence is a really helpful thing, but they're everywhere. And no matter where you go, there's always going to be those things in your face. So you have to manage your environment as best you can, manage your diet as best you can. If you're eating healthy and you're feeling good, you're going to be less likely to give into a craving. But it's constant. You have to constantly work it and be aware of it. I always call them the unicorns, the people out there that could eat whatever they want, whenever they want, because they have full control and they've always been naturally lean. I call them unicorns. My ex-husband and my best friend are like this, and I've studied them for 20 years. I just find it so fascinating, because it's rare that people are like that have that much control over everything. They just eat because they have to, rather than like wanting to eat, like for most of us, the way most of us eat. So, other than that, we have to just know that these are not foods that are going to serve us. This is not our goal right now. So you can't have it all the time. And it sucks. It's like, you want to have it, everyone's eating all that. I'm getting cookies. We're doing a party tonight with my family. My kids all want cookies. I'm going to go buy these fancy cookies that they all want. And I know that I can't have one of those cookies. I won't feel good. Plus they're not vegan, but like, it'll hurt my stomach. But it's like, I know that I can't have it, but you know what? That's okay. I don't need to have it. I'm going to enjoy my kids and enjoy my family and enjoy giving presents and all that stuff. And it's like, it's okay. It's like, I'm at peace with it because it's okay for me right now. And it's like, what do I want? You get to choose. Do you want to feel good, or do you want to have the cookie? Like, what do you want? And you have to want the healthy version of yourself more than you want that cookie in the moment, because it's really hard to resist in the moment. Everything in our biology is saying, yes, eat it. Have as much of that as you can, and we'll store for later. And it's a constant battle. Like I said, it's not easy, but if you just don't do it, it gets easier, but it's always a struggle for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I have a question about, could you please discuss diet for trying to conceive, and then what you
Oh,
when you were pregnant and nursing?
great question. I did not know what I know now when I was pregnant and nursing, unfortunately. And I still apologize to my kids because I didn't eat the way I wish I would do now. And I work with a lot of pregnant women now. And conception, it's the opposite. You can't be in weight loss mode. Oh, although I had a client that finally got to her goal weight and then got pregnant. It was like, it was a surprise. That was crazy. That never happens because fecundity and scarcity it's like, those are two competing things. Like if you are not eating and trying to lose weight, I don't think that's what this person's asking. Your body's like, oh, we can't sustain a baby right now, so it's not going to get pregnant. So if you're really trying to conceive, eat a healthy, wholesome, abundant diet where you're getting all the 6 daily threes, lots of leafy greens, so you get that folate in, so that you have the folate in your blood when you get pregnant, because you don't know when you're pregnant sometimes until a little bit later, and you want to make sure that's why doctors prescribe the prenatals prior to getting pregnant. Just preemptively. So just eating nuts and seeds are really healthy. Soy foods are really healthy, getting plenty of healthy, wholesome foods. That's what I would recommend for preconception.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I know there's all these like nursing cookies and all these special foods that they're manufacturing these days. I just please don't fall for that stuff. It's not necessary. Eat some oatmeal. Okay. Is MSG as bad as they claim it is?
No, and we did a deep dive in the HealthSpan solution about it. Monosodium glutamate, we make it in our body. It's in breast milk. I always thought it was bad. I couldn't understand why. When I dug into the science in my first book, I'm like, there's no science to support this whatsoever. It's not bad. And in Asian cultures, it's on the table like salt and pepper. There's nothing wrong with it. In fact, what I also analyzed in HealthSpan solution was you actually can get less sodium if you use MSG than table salt, because of the actual sodium in it, the actual sodium like per gram or whatever. And that was mind blowing. And it also enhances flavor so much. It brings out that umami-ness. So it makes food taste good. So you may even eat less if you use MSG. So I was for a while like I went to a conference in New York on MSG a few years ago, and my mind was blown at the science. Nothing harmful, really great flavor enhancer. And I don't use salt, otherwise I would probably be using MSG instead. I just don't use salt in my cooking, but I was really impressed. There's natural MSG in things like sun-dried tomatoes and mushrooms, which give it or cheese or vegan cheese that give it that umami, that sixth flavor that makes things taste amazing. And it's MSG. It's a naturally occurring substance. There's nothing harmful about consuming it. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy. I was not anticipating that response.
I know. I wasn't either.
And they had a whole conference on it. That's interesting too.
Well, because it was the MSG makers that had it, but they had PhDs and I went in there very objective, like, oh yeah, right. And I looked at it. I read all the science afterwards. I did a deep dive and looked at the history of it. It's a really rich history. It's the way it got they even called it like a stereotype, because it was like when the Chinese restaurants opened in the US, the Chinese were moving here, migrating here, and they kind of turned it into kind of like that kind of an issue where it was like, this one guy from, I think it was New York Post, New York Times, some big paper came out and ate at this Chinese restaurant. I think it was in New York, and wrote about how he had a headache the next day. And that's how it all started. That's how it all started and ended. It never got, and there was no science. They did all sorts of studies. I read the studies to see if those symptoms really happen, and they don't. Double-blind, controlled, randomized trials do not show any support for that idea.
Oh my goodness. It's so important to fact check.
I know.
Oh, that's wild. And good for you for being able to look at the science and be like, well, I guess my long held belief is inaccurate, and maybe I need to reform this a little bit.
We have to. If we just go in and just like there's a lot of people out there that are like, I'm not going to change my opinion. I'm just going to stick, because I don't want to like have to say I'm wrong. But oh my gosh, how can we let ego get in the way of science? Like science is like that. We have to evolve. I'm always willing to acknowledge when I was misled or mistaken, or the science has evolved. Things change. And I think that's why I love nutrition so much, because it's really kind of exciting. A lot stays the same. More stays the same than people think. Like no one really could argue or unseat the fact that fruits and vegetables are healthy. People try, but that's like a well-established, like there's things that really do not change. And then there's things that do. And I think that looking at it objectively is more exciting. And why not? Like, I want to know, I want to live healthy long. Like, I want to do the best that I can. And I want to help people do that. So definitely always looking, always curious.
Yeah, I have friends that are actually terrified to eat fruit because they think that's what makes them unhealthy and gain weight. I'm like, no, actually, everything else you're eating at the moment might be of,
Right.
greater interest. So she, Wanda's also wondering if air popped popcorn is a good snack choice.
Oh, I don't like the idea of snacking. So I call every time you eat, it's a meal. So if you're going to eat just to eat, I don't recommend that ever. Is popcorn great? Yeah, it's great. But like, it's also higher glycemic. So it depends on the goal, depends on what it is. But like, if you're going to eat every time you eat, whether it's, I've in the last 3 books, I think I've taken away breakfast, lunch, no, the last 2, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks and desserts, because every time you eat, it's an opportunity to eat and your body responds the same biochemically. So, but popcorn's fine. What's your goal? Where does it fit in on your thing compared to what is a question not asked often enough?
Isn't it like a 4 to 6 hour process every time you eat something?
From your last swallow, it's 4 to 6 hours until you're done with digestion and absorption. So people are chronically in the fed state.
Mm, yeah, regardless of the amount. Okay, so I really want to respect your time. I'll just ask a couple more and I'll let you go. So for someone who eats a clean, whole food, plant-based diet, gets regular sunshine, takes the B12, lives an overall healthy lifestyle, and doesn't have any health issues, is it really necessary or even safe to take a multivitamin as a contingency plan?
This is, I guess it's debatable and it depends on the multi, and a multivitamin is not going to make you healthier. That's for sure. We know that for sure. However, to eliminate the risk for those nutrients, I said, if you're being mindful of the zinc and the iodine and the omega-3s and the K2, which you can't really get other than a supplement unless you're doing natto, it's probably fine. But most people, and are you getting enough B12? As long as you're getting the B12, that's the most important. You cannot substitute for no B12, but probably you'll be fine without a multi. But I always recommend it because most people aren't calculating and they're not getting all of those things. And it just depends on the type of multi, not relying on a multi or any supplements to make you healthier, because that's not going to work. We know that. But yeah, you could definitely be okay if you're really conscientious like that.
So I can imagine how difficult of a study this would be, but have you seen any studies that show a clear benefit from taking a multi regularly?
Oh, no. You avoid deficiency. No, there's no benefits.
Okay. Okay, last question. Oh, 2 questions, because actually I think you have an awesome response to this next one. In what scenario would someone need to be concerned about adjusting their diet to intentionally incorporate more protein?
If you eat enough calories to maintain your weight and you're eating it from wholesome foods, it's very hard to not get enough protein.
So elderly, pregnant, nursing,
Yeah.
ill.
Well, ill, no, but well, depending on what kind of illness, but yeah, those are the populations that are at risk for all kinds of deficiencies and need to be mindful. But again, if you go to the 6 daily threes, you'll get plenty. You don't need protein powder or stuff like that. If you can't swallow or chew, like for seniors, a lot of seniors can't chew. They have dentition problems. Maybe you want to consider having protein powder or hemp seeds in a smoothie kind of a thing, or smoothies just to get more calorie. But very, very, even athletes, you just eat more whole plants, get more protein. It just works like that.
Thank you for clarifying. What advice would you provide for those concerned with how to respond to diet-related questions in social gatherings?
Oh, I tell my clients to not talk about it. I say just avoid it at all costs, because everyone eats and everyone has an opinion about food, and most people are wrong, and most people don't know, and most people are biased, and most people don't want to see you not eating what they're eating, so they'll give you every excuse in the book why you should be doing what they're doing instead. And it's why do that to yourself? So I don't, as a dietitian and even as a trainer, no one wants to eat with me. And I'm like, I don't want to talk about food. Can we talk about anything other than food? Like, let's just not, like, everyone's like, is it okay if I eat this? I'm like, you do you, I'm going to take care of myself. You eat whatever you want. I don't care. I love you for who you are. I'm glad to hang out with you, but please don't ask me about, your diet. Like, that's your thing. So I really try to avoid it. It's almost impossible in my line of work to not, but it's kind of like the psychologist, that everyone thinks that they're analyzing them when they're sitting with them at a meal. But the best is to, do what you want to do and discuss what you want to discuss. For me, I don't want to talk about it with people and listen to it, because it's like, it's all I talk about all day long. And I'm happy to share my opinion, but I don't want people to try to school me on nutrition while we're eating. Like, I don't know. People try to, like, everyone has an opinion. It's really loaded. It's like, oh my gosh. food is so ubiquitous. Everyone eats. So everyone has to like have these very strong opinions, and opinion is not science, and it gets really wiggly. And I think with my clients who are in our little cults where I'm working with them and this is what we're doing and it's our agreement and this is why, and there's a science behind it. If they go out and tell everyone what they're doing, everyone's going to like try to throw them off. Oh, well, you can't be that way. Oh, what about protein? Oh, what about that? And it's like, you know what? Just don't even bother. You got me. Text me. Like, I'm your dietitian in your pocket. Use me, because I know what your goals are. I know what your labs are. I know what you're trying to get, and I will help you get there.
And people can be so easily persuaded and just swayed in the wrong direction because, like you said, everybody has an opinion.
Exactly.
Oh, thank you, Julieanna. You are just a wealth of information. You have been so gracious with your time today. Thank you so much for coming on my channel, and I'm sure my viewers are going to be just as appreciative.
My pleasure, Karli. Thank you for having me.
It was nice meeting you. Have a Merry Christmas.
You too. Thank you. Take
Thank
care.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye.